It's been 2.5 years now since I bought this boat on AliBaba, so I thought I'd finally make a video about all the things that I've discovered that I like and don't like so much about the boat over the last 2.5 years of ownership. I've been on a lot of trips on this boat all over the UK. This year we've been around the Isle of Wight, we've been from one side of London to the other and back again, 70-mile round trip. And I'm going to make some videos about those and post them up when I get some time over the course of the next few months, hopefully. But for now, let's start going around the boat and have a look at the bits and pieces that might be of interest to you if you're really considering buying one of these boats. So I'm going to start front to back, and the first thing that was an issue with this trailer is the tow hitch that came with it from China. When I hooked the boat up to the car for the very first time, the boat, there was a lot of rock in it and it was kind of knocking and banging on the back, and I didn't really know what it was, and it turned out to be this tow hitch. Now, the tow hitch that came with it was very loose, and I don't know whether that's because it's designed for the US market, perhaps, maybe it's slightly different, a couple of mil different, but anyway, in the UK it didn't work. It was very noisy, banging backwards and forwards, and it didn't feel safe. So I fitted a replacement tow hitch, and this is a kind of European style one, and it seems to work perfectly now. There's no more banging and knocking around. So if you buy one of these from China, you might have to consider that you're going to have to replace the tow hitch, possibly. Staying in this area, something that I do like is this winch. I was expecting the winch that came with the trailer to be pretty naff, to be honest, because normally I found that boat winches, once you've had them for a season or two, start to fall apart or are just no good. But this one has actually proved to be one of the best winches I've ever had on a boat, which might be saying something about the winches that I've had in the past, but this one's pretty good. Moving forward, looking here, you'll see that I've got a spare tyre, but I don't have a spare wheel for it because these don't come with a spare wheel. I go around with a spare tyre in the thought that hopefully if the worst were to happen, I were to get a blowout, I'll be able to somehow get that tyre on there, but it would be nice to see a spare wheel come with it. And if you get the option to spec one, I'd highly recommend it because it's difficult to work out exactly what the stud configuration would be if you're buying one afterwards. The other thing that's a bit lacking on the trailer when it's delivered from the factory is the trailer electrics. They're pretty basic, they just come out the end. They do thread through the frame, which is nice, but the wire's pretty naff, and it only lasted about 18 months before that all started to fall apart. So I've replaced all of that. The wire still runs through the frame, but it comes up here to a socket, and then I've got a nice chunky spring cable which then goes onto the car from there. The rear lights that come with it are pretty useless, to be honest. In fact, I think they only lasted 1 or 2 dips into the water, and then they were full of water and they didn't work. I bought these ones on eBay and they were about 40 quid, so they're not hard to get hold of. I'll talk quickly about this number plate. The number plate is actually kind of difficult to find a place to mount it, and definitely if you lived in an area where it had to be a square number plate, I don't know how you do it, to be honest. I really don't. I had a square number plate on here before and it kept hitting the ground and it actually ended up bending all this back, so I had to weld it back on. I've managed to put this one on here now and it's fine, but it certainly wouldn't want to be any deeper. There's no dedicated place on this trailer to mount a number plate. There's also no wiring for a number plate light, so that's something you also have to sort out yourself if you live in an area where a number plate light is a compulsory thing. But just on the trailer in general, I am really happy with it. It's now been in salt water for 2.5 years. I've probably put it in and out 60 times, and it's not showing any signs of rust at all. So it is a pretty well-made trailer. It's as good as you'd really hope from any trailer. The next thing I want to talk about is this locker. So as standard, this locker opens up like this, and as standard, there's no gas strut or anything on here. It just opens up and you have to hold it open, which of course doesn't work when you're at sea. Or even when you're just filling it up on the driveway. So one thing I've had to install is this stainless steel gas strut so that it can stay open when you're putting things in and out. This was about 70 quid, I think, but well worth it, because without it, it's really not a usable locker at sea. So under the helm, you've got this really handy locker, which I use all the time. I've actually put 2 fire extinguishers just inside the door here. That's because I'm paranoid about fire, but I do need one of them for the boat safety certificate anyway. This locker's also nice and big, so it's got enough room to fit a couple of batteries. I've put 2 batteries in my case, with a switch between them, all of the cabling, and it's still got room to put things like sunglasses and radios and some tools, all that kind of thing. So it's pretty good, and it goes all the way through to the other side of the helm, where I store some other bits and pieces too. So really handy locker. One thing I would note though that I don't like about this boat is that this locker is not actually sealed. There's no rubber seal around here at all. So although it doesn't really let in any water when it's closed, in really heavy weather it probably would. Quick tip is that I've put the navigation, I've got a Raymarine Dragonfly 5 here, which I use in conjunction with an iPad now. The iPad is actually better, but I need to have both really. But I've put this on the wrong side. The person to the left of me should have the screen on this side so that they can handle the navigation while I'm at the helm, or vice versa. So that was a bit of an error on my part. While I'm up here at the helm, I'll just talk about the fuel. So it comes with a fuel gauge as standard here, which I've now removed because I've got this Suzuki SMG4 which does the fuel readings on here. But the fuel tank itself was advertised as being 70 litres. It actually holds exactly 50 litres. So although it states 70 on the website, it holds 50. Whether that be the same on the boat that you get, I don't know, but this one definitely holds 50. I love this floor. The floor was one of the things that I had to spec because when you see it in the pictures, it looks fantastic and it looks just as good in real life. It's very dirty at the moment, but generally this floor makes this rib look so much better than other boats in its class. So if you can afford it, I think it was about $800 for the real teak floor. I'd highly recommend it. Just talking about lockers again, these ones do have seals around the edge and they must offer some kind of seal because I've never really had that much water collect in the bilges below. But if you've been out for a heavy day in lots of rain, lots of water coming over the front, there is normally some water in the bilges, and I bet it's getting in through these seals. So I think that if you were going to be out in heavy water all the time, or if you were going to be leaving this boat on a swing mooring, I would highly recommend looking at changing these seals if your seals are the same as the ones that I've got on this boat. These catches are okay. They're made of good quality stainless steel. None of them have broken, or they feel really solid, to be honest, and they do keep the lockers closed. There is a little bit of movement in them when they're fully closed. They are lockable. You can put a padlock through them. One thing I would say about them is because they stick out slightly, you don't want to hit your leg on one because they are very hard and sort of slightly sharp if you hit it at some velocity, so it would really hurt if you banged your shin on one, but I haven't done that. So there's a couple of configurations for up here at the front. You can spec the $100 extra sunbathing platform for the front, and I thought for the sake of $100 I'm just going to order it and have it come with the boat in case I ever decide that I want to use it. In reality, it hasn't proved to be that good. So this is the configuration that we're normally in, but I'll show you now the other configuration, which is to have the sun platform up the front here. You can probably guess what the problem is here. As soon as you get it up on the plane, because there's no stop here, these just slide back. So it's fine if you're sort of cruising along a river and there's only two of you, but if you're out at sea, then as soon as you bring the bow up, this just slides back like this and then falls apart. So I probably wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. I'm going to talk about the back here. I've mentioned this before in one of my previous videos, but when you really open it up, it does seem to clear quite a lot of the water away from the back, and I thought that was because I had a rudder safe on here which I use for the rivers to give you better control when you're in a narrow space. But I've removed that and it has improved things, but it still does clear quite a lot of the water away from the back. So even with a trimmed right down configuration, you can find yourself in a position where you have cavitation and air around the prop, and then you get prop slip and all the rest of it, and then you have to back off, get yourself some water and go. Now whether that's a design flaw with the hull, I don't know. It doesn't really cause any problems on the hull. It certainly doesn't make the boat, you know, it's not a major problem, but it is a noticeable problem in certain sea conditions, so something to be aware of. I'm going to talk about the back of these sponsons. You can see here that they're pretty scuffed up and damaged. It's not a design fault with the boat, it's actually just my driving where I've hit them in locks and that kind of thing. But I would recommend putting something on here the day that you get it to protect these edges, because they're undoubtedly going to get hit at some point. I'm going to get these tidied up and put some protection on them, but if you buy one of these boats, you should put something on it from day one. So wrapping up on this boat, I am really pleased with it. I love this boat, it's fantastic. It's been great value for what it is. And if you compare it to buying something like a Zodiac or another branded boat, it's just phenomenal value for money. I've been out on it, I'd say probably 30 times since I bought it. And in that time, I've had 6-7 people on it, and it's been absolutely fantastic. The engine I've got on it is a 60 horsepower. That pushes it, even with 6 people on the back, it's still pushing along at sort of 25, 30 knots. So if you're in the market for a boat this kind of size, I can't sort of vouch for any other sizes of boats that are available on AliBaba, but the 4.8 from the manufacturer that I bought it for is great value for money, and I'd highly recommend it. So if you're in the market for one of these, give it a go.